How can you tell you're talking to a former pirate in virtual reality? They'll tell you they're using Android XRrrrrrr. Android XR was recently announced. XR apparently stands for Extended Reality. It's an operating system for head-mounted devices. There are other specialized versions of Android apart from the one for mobile devices. There's Android for televisions, there's Android for cars, there used to be an Android for IoT devices, but that never went anywhere. Extended reality devices can be anything from eyeglasses with integrated display hardware to AR/VR goggles that have camera-based pass-through. In other words, it's meant for the full range of what hardware makers might want to make. It's Android on your face. That means there will be a lot of different hardware for your AR/VR apps to run on, except that at this point the reality is that the vast majority of AR/VR hardware out there is Meta Quest hardware, and that, if you didn't know already, runs an operating system based on the Android Open Source Project, or AOSP. It's a bit like how Kindle Fire devices work. They run Android, but they don't have the proprietary Google Mobile Services package, nor the Play Store. Meta has their own AR/VR SDK and their own App Store. Because Meta right now owns the Android-based AR/VR market, they are unlikely to make big changes in their operating system software to accommodate Google's new AR/VR operating system and SDKs. Likewise, Google would probably tell Meta that if they want to adhere to all of the standards in Android XR, then fine, they can have the Play Store. There's a different way to compare it. Apple decided to de-emphasize AR/VR and emphasize general-purpose computing in an AR environment. Google is enabling the same thing with Android applications. You'll be able to have virtual screens and run normal Android applications on those screens if the hardware supports it. This is what Apple calls spatial computing. Meta's goggles can be a display device for Windows computers, but they're not a useful general-purpose computing device on their own. We now have this odd situation where the market leader in AR/VR hardware runs Android, but not the official version of Android, for which Google currently has 0% market share. Apple, meanwhile, has a coherent, consistent, vertically integrated suite of hardware and software for AR/VR and spatial computing. You just need $4,000 to live in that world. We're also in the midst of AI hype, so of course the Android XR launch emphasizes AI and Gemini in the user interface for Android XR. This means Android XR devices will be able to do a lot of the things that the Humane AI pin was meant to do. Do you even remember the Humane AI pin? Yeah, the whole category of things called AI devices is and remains an unproven market as well. On top of that, it's odd to announce the product before Christmas that isn't going to be available until after Christmas. I can't think of a case where that's ever worked out very well. They probably should have held the Android XR announcement until after the new year, except maybe the APIs and the SDK and a simulator or whatever other developer tools they're putting out. Apple can't seem to get anybody excited about spatial computing, which is, after all, 2D computing in a 3D environment. You can be excused for not seeing the point. Now Google is putting the emphasis on AI. It's a more plausible hook, but it remains to be seen if it's any better than Meta's approach, which is just to grind away at 3D games and keep selling hardware.